There's a strange illusion that most people live under. They believe character reveals itself slowly, through years, through conversations, through time. But according to one of history's most brutally honest observers of human nature, this belief is naive. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his life watching rulers, generals, traitors, and allies, kings who smiled in public and plotted in private, friends who swore loyalty and betrayed each other days later, leaders who appeared noble but collapsed the moment power was within reach. And after decades of observing power games inside courts and governments, Machiavelli reached a conclusion that still unsettles people today. Human character doesn't hide as well as we think. In fact, it leaks through small moments, through pressure, through temptation, through how someone behaves when no one expects their behavior to matter. Most people think they can read someone by listening to what they say. But Machiavelli knew something different. Words are costumes. Character reveals itself in reactions. And if you know where to look, you can see the truth about someone almost instantly. Not after years, not after deep relationships. Sometimes within minutes. This is why powerful leaders, strategists, and observers of human nature learn to watch 3 very specific situations. 3 moments where the mask cracks. 3 tests that expose what someone truly is beneath their charm, their intelligence, their reputation, and their carefully constructed personality. These moments are subtle, but once you understand them, you will never look at people the same way again, because suddenly you will begin to see something disturbing. The person speaking confidently in front of you may already be revealing exactly who they are, without realizing it. And Machiavelli believed that those who learn to recognize these signals gain an enormous advantage in life. Because the greatest mistake a person can make is trust in someone whose character they never truly observed. And history is full of men who paid for that mistake with power, with reputation, and sometimes with their lives. So what are these 3 moments that expose a person's true nature? Moments so small most people ignore them, but so revealing that once you see them, you can never unsee them. The first one appears when someone faces a person who is weaker than them. Because nothing reveals a human being faster than power imbalance. Machiavelli once wrote that if you want to understand a ruler, don't watch how he treats powerful allies. Watch how he treats those who cannot resist him. Servants, messengers, subordinates, people who cannot fight back. Because when someone stands in front of a person who has no ability to punish them, no ability to retaliate, no influence, no leverage, something interesting happens. Their real instincts appear. The polite mask fades. The careful diplomacy disappears. And suddenly you begin to see the raw structure of their character. Are they respectful or cruel? Patient or arrogant? Calm or contemptuous? This is not a coincidence. Power removes fear, and when fear disappears, the true personality emerges. There is a story often told about the courts of Renaissance, Italy, that perfectly demonstrates this idea. During the time when Machiavelli served as a diplomat in Florence, he spent countless hours observing nobles, generals, and political envoys. These were men who dressed in elegance, spoke with confidence, and carried reputations of honor. But Machiavelli noticed something strange. These same men behaved very differently when speaking to servants. A nobleman who appeared dignified when negotiating alliances with powerful families would suddenly become impatient, dismissive, and insulting when speaking to a messenger who delivered a letter late. A commander who displayed calm authority while addressing his army would erupt into rage when a stable boy failed to prepare his horse correctly. And Machiavelli realized something profound. The real character wasn't visible during important political meetings. Those meetings were performances. The real character appeared in moments they believed did not matter. Moments where they believed no one important was watching. This insight would later influence the ideas he expressed in The Prince where he explained that understanding human nature requires observing, behavior when incentives disappear. When someone has nothing to gain from appearing virtuous, because that is when their instincts speak honestly. Think about it carefully. Anyone can behave respectfully when their reputation is at stake. Anyone can act generous when powerful people are watching. Anyone can appear kind when there are consequences for cruelty. But remove the audience, remove the risk, remove the pressure, and suddenly the truth emerges. The way someone treats a waiter, the way someone speaks to an employee, the way someone reacts to a mistake made by someone beneath them. These moments expose something deeper than personality. They reveal values, and values determine behavior under pressure. Machiavelli understood that a leader surrounded by people who abuse small amounts of power will eventually suffer from betrayal when real power appears, because cruelty without consequences slowly grows. Arrogance feeds on silence, and contempt toward the weak often becomes treachery toward equals. That is why Machiavelli advised rulers to observe carefully before trusting anyone. Not their speeches, not their promises, but their smallest actions, because someone who humiliates a powerless person today may betray you tomorrow the moment they believe you can no longer punish them. This is the first test of character, power without consequences, and very few people pass it. But the second test Machiavelli observed is even more revealing, because it exposes something even deeper than arrogance. It exposes loyalty, and loyalty, according to Machiavelli, is the rarest trait in human nature. Most people believe loyalty is proven through words, through declarations, through promises, but Machiavelli saw a different pattern. True loyalty only appears during one specific moment. A moment when loyalty becomes dangerous, when staying loyal costs something, when betrayal becomes easier, because in comfortable times, everyone appears loyal. But when circumstances shift, the true structure of someone's character is revealed, and the second moment appears when someone faces personal advantage at the expense of someone else's trust. It is the moment when a person realizes they could benefit from betrayal, and no one might ever know. History is full of these moments. Kings betrayed by generals, friends betrayed by advisors, empires collapsing because someone decided loyalty was no longer profitable. Machiavelli witnessed these events firsthand while serving the Republic of Florence, and one particular episode deeply shaped his understanding of loyalty. During his diplomatic missions, Machiavelli spent time observing the rise of one of the most feared and fascinating figures in Renaissance politics, Cesare Borgia. Borgia was ambitious, strategic, and ruthless when necessary. But what fascinated Machiavelli was not simply Borgia's intelligence. It was his understanding of betrayal. Borgia knew that loyalty could not be assumed. It had to be tested, and he carefully watched how his allies behaved when opportunities appeared, because he knew something simple. When someone discovers they can gain power by abandoning you, that moment reveals exactly who they are, and those who fail that test are not enemies. They are something far more dangerous. They are people who pretend to be allies, the kind of people who smile while calculating when betrayal will benefit them. This is why Machiavelli believed wise leaders observe behavior during moments of temptation. When someone has the chance to advance themselves, even if it means quietly undermining someone else, do they resist, or do they take the opportunity? Because that single decision reveals the architecture of their character. Some people choose advantage, others choose loyalty, and the difference between those two instincts determines whether someone becomes trustworthy or dangerous. Most people never notice these tests happening around them. They assume relationships reveal truth slowly, but Machiavelli understood something chilling. Human nature is surprisingly consistent. If someone betrays a small trust today, they will betray a larger one tomorrow. If someone sacrifices loyalty for convenience once, they will do it again when the stakes become greater. Which leads to the third and most revealing moment of all, a moment that exposes something deeper than cruelty, and deeper than betrayal. It exposes self-control, because according to Machiavelli, nothing reveals character faster than how Someone behaves when emotions take control, and that is exactly where most people reveal their true nature. But this third moment is far more subtle than anger. In fact, it often appears during success, because power, advantage, and victory do something dangerous to the human mind. They remove restraint, and when restraint disappears, instinct takes over. This is the moment where intelligent observers of human nature learn the most about someone, not when they are struggling, not when they are failing, but when they are winning, because victory reveals the soul in ways failure never can. And Machiavelli saw countless powerful men destroy themselves the moment they tasted success. But the story that reveals this truth most clearly is one Machiavelli himself witnessed unfold in the brutal political landscape of Renaissance Italy. A story about ambition, power, and the moment when success revealed a fatal flaw in a man who once seemed unstoppable. And when we examine that moment carefully, we discover the third test of character that Machiavelli believed exposes the truth about any human being, a test that still applies today. In business, in politics, in friendships, and in the quiet decisions people make when they believe the game has already been won, because victory does something dangerous to the human mind. It convinces people that consequences no longer apply. And when that belief appears, character reveals itself faster than ever, because victory changes people, sometimes subtly, sometimes violently, but always revealing something that was already there. Most people assume that power corrupts character, but observers like Niccolò Machiavelli believed something more unsettling. Power does not corrupt. Power exposes. It strips away hesitation. It removes the need to pretend. And when someone finally feels untouchable, their real instincts emerge. This is why Machiavelli spent so much time watching powerful men at the moment they believed they had already won, because that is when caution disappears. That is when arrogance begins to whisper. And that is when a person unknowingly reveals whether they possess discipline or self-destruction. In his observations of rulers and generals across Italy, Machiavelli saw a pattern repeat itself again and again. A man struggles for power for years. He carefully plans. He forms alliances. He hides his intentions. He appears patient and calculated. But the moment victory arrives, something changes. The careful strategist suddenly becomes reckless. The patient negotiator becomes arrogant. The cautious planner begins believing he cannot be challenged. And in that exact moment, his real character becomes visible, not the one he showed the world while climbing, but the one that was always hidden beneath ambition. This is the third test of character: success. Because success removes the need for self-control. And without self-control, human instincts begin to lead. Machiavelli observed this phenomenon most clearly during the chaotic political battles of Renaissance Italy, where alliances shifted constantly and power could disappear overnight. And one of the most fascinating figures he watched navigate this dangerous environment was a man who seemed, for a time, nearly unstoppable: Cesare Borgia. Borgia possessed many qualities Machiavelli admired: strategic intelligence, fearlessness, patience. He knew how to build alliances. He knew when to show mercy. And perhaps most importantly, he knew when to show fear. For years, Borgia expanded his influence carefully, city by city, alliance by alliance, each move calculated, each action deliberate. Machiavelli watched him closely and saw something rare: a man who understood that power required both strength and perception. But even a man as intelligent as Borgia could not escape the most dangerous moment in the rise of any ambitious figure: the moment success begins to feel permanent. Because once a person begins to believe they cannot lose, they stop protecting themselves from their own instincts. And that is when character reveals its deepest flaw. During Borgia's rise, he demonstrated extraordinary discipline. He punished betrayal swiftly. He rewarded loyalty strategically. He kept his ambitions hidden beneath careful diplomacy. But as his victories accumulated, something subtle began to shift. His confidence hardened into certainty. His patience shortened. His sense of control over events grew stronger than the reality around him. And Machiavelli noticed something critical. The same man who once analyzed every move with precision was beginning to assume the world would continue bending to his will. This belief has destroyed countless powerful figures throughout history because it creates a dangerous illusion. The illusion that intelligence alone guarantees survival. But Machiavelli understood something deeper about human nature. No one is immune to circumstance. No one is immune to time. And the moment someone begins believing they are, their downfall quietly begins. Borgia's story eventually took a dramatic turn when the political landscape of Italy shifted in ways even he could not control. The death of powerful allies, the rise of unexpected enemies. Suddenly, the structure supporting his dominance weakened, and the man who once seemed unstoppable found himself facing forces beyond his influence. But the most revealing part of this story is not his eventual fall. It is what his rise revealed before that fall ever arrived. Because throughout his victories, Borgia demonstrated something that fascinated Machiavelli, a rare awareness of how dangerous success could become. Unlike many rulers who celebrated victory recklessly, Borgia attempted to control the chaos that power creates. He removed unstable allies. He eliminated rivals before they could betray him. He constantly reinforced his authority to prevent rebellion. Machiavelli studied these actions carefully and later wrote about them in Seen the Prince, not because he admired cruelty, but because he admired strategic awareness. Borgia understood that power attracts enemies, that success creates jealousy, and that victory does not secure safety. It only begins the real struggle. But even someone as perceptive as Borgia could not fully escape the third test of character. Because success always carries a hidden temptation. The temptation to relax, to assume stability, to believe the hardest battles are already over. And the moment someone accepts that belief, their instincts slowly begin replacing their discipline. This is why Machiavelli believed the most revealing moment in someone's character appears not when they are struggling, but when they are comfortable. Comfort weakens vigilance. Comfort invites arrogance. Comfort convinces people they no longer need to observe themselves. And that is when their true nature emerges. Some people become generous with power. Others become tyrannical. Some become reckless. Others become wise. But in every case, their instincts finally become visible. This is the third test, success without restraint. And it reveals something profound about human beings. Because very few people can handle victory without changing. Most become louder, more impatient, more dismissive, more convinced they are correct. And this is exactly why Machiavelli warned rulers to watch carefully when someone suddenly gains influence. Because the first moments of new power often reveal the deepest parts of their personality. A person who remains disciplined during success is rare. A person who becomes arrogant during success is predictable. But the truly dangerous person is the one who hides their arrogance until power becomes secure. Because by the time their character becomes visible, it is often too late. This insight explains why so many leaders throughout history surrounded themselves with observers, people whose only job was to quietly watch the behavior of others. Not their speeches, not their public reputation, but their reactions in specific moments. Moments of power, moments of temptation, moments of victory. Because those three moments reveal the structure of someone's character faster than years of conversation. And once you begin recognizing these patterns, you begin seeing people differently. You notice how someone speaks to a person who cannot help them. You notice how someone behaves when betrayal could benefit them. You notice how someone reacts when they suddenly gain status or influence. And gradually, a disturbing realization begins forming. Many people who appear impressive fail these tests immediately, not because they are evil, but because human nature is fragile. Fear controls behavior more than morality. Opportunity tests loyalty more than promises. And success tests discipline more than intelligence. These truths may sound cynical, but Machiavelli never believed he was describing evil. He believed he was describing reality, because understanding reality is the first step toward navigating it. And those who refuse to observe human nature clearly often become victims of it, which is why Machiavelli's writings still provoke controversy centuries later. Some people believe he encouraged manipulation. Others believe he exposed uncomfortable truths. But regardless of interpretation, his observations about human character remain disturbingly accurate. People reveal themselves in moments they believe are insignificant. And those who learn to watch those moments gain a powerful advantage, because once you recognize the patterns, you stop trusting appearances. You stop trusting words alone. And instead, you begin watching behavior. But the most powerful insight Machiavelli left behind is not simply about identifying character in others. It is about recognizing it within yourself, because the same three tests apply to everyone. How you treat those who cannot benefit you, how you behave when betrayal becomes profitable, how you react when success places power in your hands. These moments expose something deeper than reputation. They reveal identity, and according to Machiavelli, the people who truly master power are not those who dominate others. They are those who understand their own nature well enough to control it. Because anyone can observe character in others, but very few people are willing to observe it within themselves. And that is where true mastery begins. There's a quiet moment that happens once a person truly understands human nature. A moment when the world suddenly becomes clearer. Conversations feel different. Smiles feel different. Even silence begins to carry meaning, because once you begin observing people the way Niccolò Machiavelli observed them, you start noticing something unsettling. Most people reveal themselves constantly, not through dramatic betrayals, not through obvious cruelty, but through small reactions that appear insignificant to everyone else. A careless comment, a dismissive glance, a sudden change in tone when speaking to someone who has less influence. These moments pass quickly, but they leave traces. And to someone paying attention, those traces form a pattern that slowly exposes who someone truly is. Beneath their carefully managed identity, because human beings are experts at managing appearances, we learn early in life that reputation matters. We learn how to speak politely when needed, how to appear confident even when uncertain, how to hide irritation behind a smile. But these performances require energy. They require awareness, and most people cannot maintain them constantly. Eventually the mask slips. Eventually instinct interrupts the performance. And that is when the truth appears. Machiavelli spent years watching these moments unfold in the courts of Italy, in rooms filled with diplomats, soldiers, merchants, and nobles. Men who believed they understood power. Men who believed they could control how others perceived them. But over time he noticed something remarkable. The people who appeared the most impressive at first glance were often the least trustworthy. And the people who appeared quiet, observant, even unremarkable, often possessed the strongest discipline. Because Machiavelli realized something many people misunderstand about power. True power rarely announces itself. It observes, it waits, it learns. And this is exactly why Machiavelli warned rulers not to judge people by reputation alone. Reputation can be constructed, titles can be inherited, confidence can be performed. But character always leaves evidence, and the three moments we explored reveal that evidence faster than almost anything else. The first moment appears when someone encounters a person who cannot threaten them, because power imbalance exposes instinct. How someone treats a powerless person reveals how they behave when fear disappears, and fear is often the only force keeping cruelty hidden. The second moment appears when loyalty becomes inconvenient. When someone realizes they could gain something by betraying trust, that is when character makes a decision. Not a dramatic decision, not a public declaration, but a quiet internal choice. Do they remain loyal, or do they quietly choose advantage? because loyalty that only exists when it is easy is not loyalty at all. And the third moment appears during success, when power, recognition, or influence suddenly arrives. Because success removes restraint, it creates confidence. And confidence often invites arrogance. This is the moment where discipline is truly tested. Does someone remain calm and aware? Or do they begin believing they are untouchable? History shows us that the moment someone believes they cannot fall, they usually begin falling already. This is why Machiavelli spent so much time studying the rise and fall of ambitious men like Cesare Borgia. Borgia fascinated him not simply because of his victories, but because his story demonstrated how fragile power truly is. A man can appear unstoppable for years. He can dominate rivals. He can outmaneuver enemies. But if his character contains even one hidden weakness, eventually the world will find it, because power does not forgive blind spots. And that is the deeper lesson hidden beneath Machiavelli's observations. Understanding human nature is not about becoming cynical. It is about becoming aware. Because awareness protects you. It prevents blind trust. It prevents manipulation. It allows you to see patterns long before they become problems. Most people walk through life assuming others are exactly who they claim to be. But Machiavelli believed that assumption was dangerous. Not because everyone is dishonest, but because very few people truly understand themselves. They believe they are loyal until temptation appears. They believe they are kind until power imbalance removes consequences. They believe they are disciplined until success begins feeding their ego. And that is why observing behavior matters more than listening to declarations. Anyone can say they are trustworthy. Anyone can claim loyalty. Anyone can promise integrity. But words are cheap. Behavior is expensive. Behavior reveals priorities. And priorities reveal character. This is the quiet skill that intelligent observers develop over time. They listen carefully, but they watch even more carefully. They notice how someone behaves in moments that appear meaningless, because those moments are rarely meaningless at all. They are windows, small openings through which real personality becomes visible. And once you begin recognizing these windows, you start understanding people far more clearly than before. You recognize arrogance disguised as confidence. You recognize loyalty disguised as politeness. You recognize manipulation disguised as charm. And perhaps most importantly, you begin recognizing the same patterns within yourself. Because Machiavelli's observations were never meant to be used only against others. They were meant to expose the structure of human nature itself, including our own. Ask yourself something honestly. How do you behave when someone beneath you makes a mistake? How do you behave when loyalty costs you an opportunity? How do you behave when success suddenly places you above others? These questions are uncomfortable, but they reveal something important. Character is not what we believe about ourselves. Character is what our instincts reveal when circumstances change. And the people who truly understand power are not the ones who dominate others. They are the ones who recognize their own instincts and control them. Because controlling others requires strategy, but controlling yourself requires awareness. And awareness is rare. That is why the greatest observers of human nature throughout history were rarely the loudest voices in the room. They were the quiet ones, the ones watching carefully, learning constantly, understanding patterns long before others noticed them. And once you begin developing that same awareness, you will notice something fascinating. The world becomes easier to navigate, not because people change, but because their behavior becomes predictable. Cruelty leaves clues. Ambition leaves clues. Loyalty leaves clues. And discipline leaves clues. The only difference between those who see these clues and those who miss them is attention. Machiavelli understood that attention is one of the most powerful tools a person can develop. Because once you see the patterns of human nature clearly, very little can surprise you. Not betrayal, not arrogance, not sudden displays of kindness. Everything begins to make sense within the structure of character. And that clarity becomes its own form of power, a quiet power. The power of understanding. So the next time you meet someone impressive, someone charismatic, someone confident and intelligent, listen to their words, but watch their behavior even more closely. Watch how they treat someone who cannot help them. Watch how they behave when loyalty becomes inconvenient. Watch how they react when success begins feeding their ego. Because those 3 moments will tell you more about them than years of conversation ever could. And once you see those moments clearly, you will understand exactly what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Human character does not hide very well. It simply waits for the right moment to reveal itself. And those who learn to recognize that moment rarely become victims of it. Alright guys, I hope you will like this video and subscribe this channel to get more valuable videos like this. Thanks for watching.